Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to the Fortified Life podcast, where we learn how to develop a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. From the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. Here's our host, author, speaker, teacher, encourager, stewardship coach, and my husband, the man they call Mr. Fortified, Jason Davis.
Yes, sir. What's going on, everybody? My name is Jason Davis, aka Mr. Fortified, and welcome to another episode of the Fortified Life podcast. Here on the Fortified Life podcast, we are passionate about learning what it means to develop a dependency on Jesus and the marketplace. And the way we do that, sometimes you'll hear from me individually, but what's best or what's better is you hear the stories, the testimonies, the life experience, and the wisdom from other kingdom business owners, kingdom influencers, people that are at the top of their field. When you get to hear what God is doing in their life and how he's using them in the marketplace, it's so much better when you hear from them. And tonight, it is no different. Before I bring on our guest, I'm going to introduce her to you. Let me tell you something right now. This lady might be small in stature, but she is dangerous in the spirit. I tell her that all the time. I could hear her laughing in my head right now as I'm saying that. She's a friend of mine, and it's going to be a great conversation. So let me introduce her to you. Victoria G. Rodgers-Neal is the founder and CEO of Graceful Works, a coaching and consulting agency specializing in bridging the gap between faith and wealth and the life of the modern pioneer woman. She is a board-certified behavior analyst, executive producer of the Dare to Pursue podcast, author of Dare to Pursue, Discover Divine Alignment to Pioneer a Life of Unlimited Possibilities, brand strategist, current and aspiring healthcare businesses, a transformational speaker, and devoted Christian wife and mother. Her impact extends with a global reach, ladies and gentlemen, for those that are ready to dare to pursue, to increase in their faith, their impact, and their income through behavior modification and program development. She keeps the Word of God as the center of her platform. Victoria has been featured in several magazines and publications throughout her years of service. Folks, she's got a lot more in her bio, but I'm going to let her tell herself more about you. I'm going to let her tell herself more about her during this interview as I bring her on. Let's welcome Victoria Rodgers-Neal to the Fortified Life.
Hey, hello. Thank you so much, Jason. I'm super excited to be here.
Absolutely. I thought I was introducing Wonder Woman for a second as I was reading that.
Oh my goodness. I promise you, it's just the start, I think, of what God is doing. And as I was actually preparing this bio for you, we're in the same accountability group. We're in the same mastermind together. And so preparing this bio was just kind of so humbling and an opportunity for me to just thank God and actually look back and see like, wow, this is what I've accomplished. And this is what I've given my yes to God for, right? So it's just an honor and privilege to be here with you tonight.
Absolutely, Victoria. This was just, it wasn't a matter of if, it was when you were coming on the platform. And yes, folks, shout out to KBN, the Kingdom Business Network, and the Master's Mind. That's actually the accountability group Victoria is talking about, that where we really got to know one another. So I have seen God work in her life up close and personal, and she's got a lot of wisdom and a lot of stories. I can tell you that much,
Okay.
right, Victoria?
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, Victoria, let's take a little journey. Let's time travel a little bit, because a lot of people, they heard how extensive your bio was, but I know when we've talked offline, like, God has brought you a long way. So just give us a journey, and take us uh, on a trip down memory lane of just where you are professionally and how God has done that.
Absolutely. So, professionally, I love that word because, again, I am now board certified. I'm now licensed in my area, and field of expertise, where I spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I would say, to earn these degrees and these certifications and things like that. But let's go back to 2016 when I graduated with my bachelor's degree. I thought that was all I needed. I thought it was, I don't know what I thought. I think I thought I was going to be rich, right, with my bachelor's degree. And I thought I would be able to practice therapy in a capacity, in a clinical capacity, but that just was not that was not the case with the
Mm,
bachelor's. And so from there, I decided to figure out what I was going to do on this journey. And I got into the field of applied behavior analysis, which is what I'm licensed in now. And once I got into the field, I said, you know what? I most definitely want to take the master's route. I want to get my master's degree in this. I want to see where God wants to take this specialization, this focus on behavior change principles and behavior modification. And so I almost did that. Okay. But life does what it does. And, I'm
right.
not perfect. And I ended up getting married and having a baby. And actually, you could do vice versa. I had the baby first. I went a little bit out of order, but God saw it through. And I have to mention that for anybody who may be listening and anybody who may think that, when we have these extensive backgrounds and we come on platforms like the Fortified Life, right? This is an amazing platform to be on. And God has kind of raised me up. I didn't start out perfect. Okay. I made mistakes. And so I had to make sure that I put that in there because it was a pivotal moment in my life and in my walk with God. And without that pivotal moment in my life and that actually kickstarting my Dare to Pursue process, I wouldn't be where I am today. Dare to Pursue would not be a book. Dare to Pursue would not be a podcast. Dare to Pursue would not be a process that I've gone through with hundreds of women to help them figure out who they are, figure out who God is in their life, and then pursue the thing that God has called them to do. So I wanted to make sure that I say that part. So again, married, had a kid, still hadn't gone back to school just yet. Then I decided, you know what, let's go for it. Let's do it. Even though I was going through, I would say, the worst mm, spiritual warfare that I had ever experienced in my life. Okay. And so I just, something in me, I feel like it had to be God. He said, go, I need you to start. And that was actually not until 2019. And so the fact that I'm here now telling you guys that I am a practitioner now, I am actually licensed, I am actually board certified, it's a testimony in and of itself. So in the meantime and in between time of me getting my master's and knowing for a fact that this was going to be a marathon and not a sprint to get to these licenses, I decided to give God my yes and just start talking to women, sharing my testimony with women. And at the time, I had a testimony, like I said, with, the spiritual warfare and figuring out who I was. And if you know me, you know me. I am not afraid to share with people that I am a recovering people pleaser. I believe that that's a place that I'll be in for forever because it's so easy to slip back into that space. And instead of being a people pleaser, I'm now a God pleaser 100%.
Ooh,
That's my
that'll
focus,
preach.
to please God 100%. And so in the meantime, right, and in between time of me working on this master's degree, working on clinical experience hours, being a first time mom, trying my best to be a wife, having these generational curses that I'm breaking, and kind of getting this concept that God is downloading on the inside of me of this generational wealth. It was just so much going on at one time. That's how Dare to Pursue was birthed. Because one day God just kind of sat me down. I cried out to him and I said, God, I don't get it. I don't understand. Why do you have me in this place, in this space? I feel like it's just a dry wasteland. I feel like I'm learning these things now about you in the Bible because, again, I was raised to know who God was. Like, I was raised to know who Jesus was. However, I didn't really know the fullness of Jesus. I didn't even realize there was a thing called Jesus's wealthy place. I didn't even realize that there was this thing called divine incubation and, divine deliverance and divine wisdom. Like, I had no idea about any of these things. And so I cried out to God and he said, sit down, daughter, and write. So
Mm,
that's when I started to write. And that's when he gave me Dare to Pursue. And my entire business is based off of Dare to Pursue and that entire process. So I hope that answered the question a little bit, but that's kind of a start to where Dare to Pursue was then developed. And then really me giving God my yes and other people giving God their yes to say, you know what? I'm going to come to this prayer call that she's having. It's free. I'm going to come to this Bible study that she's having. It's free. She keeps talking about this Dare to Pursue thing and she's inviting me to this. I'm going to go ahead and come and see what it's all about. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned throughout my professional development, to becoming a behavioral health coach and to becoming a licensed behavior analyst and a service-based business strategist for healthcare practitioners. You have to say yes first and you have to be willing.
mm.
So yeah, I really hope that answered the question thus far.
That definitely did, Victoria, and more. You had some flamethrowers in there. I felt myself getting chills on a couple things. This lady said, I went from being a people pleaser to a God pleaser. And then you were trying to get me started, Victoria. You said the fullness of Jesus. I said, my goodness, she is trying to have a revival tonight.
Okay.
Now, Victoria, for the people in the front of the room may know
Mhm.
about behavior change, but for the people in the back, tell us about, because when you get into behavioral things and some of the sciences, some people are like, that just sounds like she is really smart, which she is. And so
Yeah.
but pull the curtain back on what a certified behavior analyst and that kind of behavioral health aspect of things.
Absolutely, yes. I love this. So let's start from the very beginning. What I went to school to study for in my master's and I specialized in is called applied behavior analysis. It's basically the science of the study of behavior. And with that science of the study of behavior, we then have the knowledge to take data and use what we can see. Okay, this is the important part here, and this is where God kind of blew my mind. But basically, what we can see and observe. Have you guys? I'm sure you guys have heard of the. I'm having a little bit of a brain fart, but specific, measurable, and timely in a way in which SMART goals. I'm sure we've all heard of those, right?
Mhm.
Specific, measurable,
Yeah, the smart
um,
smart goals, I
SMART goals.
think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, it's based off of what you can see. So
Mm,
that is what science is based off of what is objectable and what is measurable. So that entire science, everything that I studied and I specialized in, it's based off of what can be seen. So if you think about a scientist, you can't see God, right? You God is not, God is this subjective thing. He's not objective, right? He's not something that you can necessarily see with your natural eye, especially if you don't have faith, right? And so with this science, God has given me the ability to match the behavior change principles with biblical truths and biblical principles. So to go back to what you were asking, basically what I do is I use the Dare to Pursue process to intentionally go in and use some of the more faith-based measures and biblical truth-based measures to encourage, right? Because you have to give your yes. You have to be okay with it. You have to be a willing vessel. I'm sure we've all heard this. God is a gentleman. He's not just going to come in and step all over your feet. He wants to be welcomed and he wants to be accepted. And so that's what Dare to Pursue is all about. Making the choice to say, okay, God, the way that I've been doing things, it's not getting it done. Or the way that I've been doing things, I know I'm not necessarily breaking generational curses and building generational wealth in the way that you've called me to do so. Okay, God, I see the flaw in me. Okay, God, I'm humble enough to know that I'm not perfect. And so then I take that, right? Because again, it has to be all on the person to be willing to say yes, to be willing to be a vessel for God. And we use very specific principles where we can take data, right? Where we can self-manage, where we can self-evaluate. We take those principles and we enact strategies for healthy behavior change that are, for me specifically, that are geared toward pursuing God in the way that he's called the woman or man to be. So real MVP, if you know anything about me, love working with real MVPs. The real MVP is the most valuable player in their bloodline right here, right now. You are the generational curse breaker. You are the generational wealth builder right here, right now. So every move you make it's important. Every move you make is somebody else is depending on you. So it's not just for your healing, it's not just for your finances, it's not just for you, it's for those who are coming after you, it's for those who are younger than you, it's for those who aren't even born yet in your bloodline. And so I know that that was kind of a long explanation, but the gist of it is we take these behavior change principles, these kind of worldly principles, if you will, because they're based off of science. But God has allowed me the unique ability to mesh faith with that and use biblical truth and biblical principles to be able to actually change our behavior so that we can live in the realm of unlimited possibilities.
That's good, Victoria. As you were talking, it occurred to me when I think about behaviors, the word that kept coming to me was habits. And I think it was Aristotle, I believe, who said that we are what we repeatedly do, I think.
Absolutely.
So just what have you seen in working with clients? What role do habits play with behavior modification?
I love that question, Jason. Okay, because I'm in the middle of publishing Dare to Pursue. And
Hmm.
so the book goes extensively into this idea or this topic of cycles of chaos. So if you know what I mean, if you just know what the word chaos means, then you can understand that a cycle of chaos is probably something you don't want. Okay. And so a lot of times, because of what we've been through in our lives, because of our childhood trauma, because of our adolescent trauma, because of our adult trauma, because of generational curses, some things that we didn't even tap into, some things that we didn't have any part of. Sometimes it's just things that we cannot control. There's something I do want to share with you guys really quickly, right? Because we have things that happen in our life that we cannot control. I have this equation that I found out about a few years ago when God first put me along this pursuit, and it goes like this: E plus R equals O. So the E is the event. The event is something you cannot control. Okay. And I want us to think of our behaviors can sometimes be events. Our behaviors can sometimes be things that we can't control, things that happen to us, and our responses, which is the R, our response is what we do have control over. So sometimes things happen, right? We've heard sometimes bad things happen to good people. Again, we're not God. We can't control it. Sometimes maybe we did put ourselves in a certain situation, right? And whatever happened, it ended up happening. But regardless, events in our lives are going to happen. And the important thing about events is that we can learn from events. So here's the equation. E plus R equals O. The event plus your response equals the outcome.
Mm.
Your response is what you do have control over. So let's give a very basic example. You go to work and, you know, you're one of those people. You used to be one of those. Let's be clear, right? You used to be one of those people who could go from 0 to 100 real quick, right? And so because you started your Dare to Pursue process, you're learning who you are in the spirit. You're learning who you are as God's son or daughter. You're learning who God is. You're learning to trust him. You're learning all the things, right? And so and so is at your job and they're getting on your nerves. And today is just not your day. You didn't wake up on the right side of the bed. I mean, again, we're still human. You have the ability to control your response toward that person. Period. You have the ability to control that response. Now, you could respond in a negative way, or you could respond in a positive way by not responding at all, by ignoring, by maybe you have a nice, clean way of telling somebody where they can go, right? That's going to determine your outcome. Your response determines the outcome of the event that takes place. So we have to understand that events are always going to take place. However, it is our responses that we have control over, which will then determine the outcome. So I hope that made sense. And of course, if you have any questions, let me know.
That made too much sense, Victoria. Listen,
Okay.
you all need to take notes. The event plus our response is what yields the outcome. You're taking us back to school today, Victoria.
Okay, I want to make sure that made sense because it
Yeah.
ties back into that cycle of chaos that I mentioned and the
Mm-hmm.
habits that you mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have habits. Another habit, right? A behavior, biting nails, right? Sometimes people could bite their nails so much that they begin to bleed, right? That's a habit that you would want to break, because why would you want to continuously break the skin on your body? Why would you want to continuously, intentionally, right? Even if it's non-intentional, right? It's just a habit that you have. It's something that you would want to break. So it brings me back to these cycles of chaos. And when we look at the cycles of chaos from a faith-based perspective, they are actually demonic patterns. So I don't like to start off with saying demonic patterns, because I think when you say that word demonic, sometimes it can scare people. And, you know, it is what it is, though, right? We are in this world, but we are not of this world. And we were born into sin. And we have all of these things that have happened around us. We have these generational curses and spirits of inheritance sometimes that have connected themselves to our bloodline. Okay. And so is letting us know. He let me know specifically through Dare to Pursue and other individuals who have done it with me, like, hey, I do have the ability to break this thing off my bloodline. I do have the ability to be different. And a lot of times the real MVPs don't even realize they're already breaking generational curses and building generational wealth. A great example would be, I'm a first generation college student. I didn't even realize that until I actually got to college. And I said, oh, wait, this is different. I've never done this before. I have nobody I can turn to and ask about this particular thing that I've gone through or that I'm going through. How do I pick classes? How do I figure out my, from A to Z for this degree, right? That's a great example of being a first generation college student breaking a generational curse, right? And so going back to these cycles of chaos, I need us all to know that you have the ability to, number one, point it out. So God was taking me into this place in this space of becoming self-aware and understanding that mindfulness was his idea, and understanding that manifestation, I know people don't really like to talk about it, and I don't necessarily use it because when you use it, people may think something different. However, these things were God's idea, but the enemy took it and twisted it. So this is an example that I can give when, mindfulness and, manifesting and, speaking those things that be not as though they were, that's literally God letting us know in the Bible, you can manifest something and bring something to fruition. I usually like to use bring to fruition instead of manifestation, but I need y'all to know, first and foremost, I'm only talking about Jesus as well. I always have to make myself very clear. I'm only talking about Jesus. I am talking about the Bible. I am talking about the God of ancient Israel. When I speak of these things, I'm not talking about any New Age practices. I'm not talking about anything else. But we have to be able to break these things down and become aware of Satan's devices against us. And the best way that he can come against us is our mind. Of course, he can come against you physically, he can come against you financially, but if your mind is not focused on Jesus's wealthy place, is not focused on the wealth mindset, which I like to use that interchangeably with Jesus's wealthy place, you will fall victim to Satan's devices. You will think that manifesting is something connected to the universe. You will think that bringing things to fruition is something from the trees or the stones or the rocks. Like all of this, Satan's biggest device against us is using our mind against us because we lack knowledge. Now, here's something else. I'm going to say this word and I hope nobody takes offense to it. But God said in his word that his people perish for a lack of knowledge. If you look up the word ignorant, which I was once ignorant, and I need us to be okay with accepting, right, our flaws without Jesus, without God. That's the only way you can truly dare to pursue. I was once ignorant, and so I'm using myself as an example. I once lacked knowledge. Ignorance is just a lack of knowledge. And God tells us in his word, when we lack knowledge, we are living in a place of ignorance. We are blind. It says multiple times in the Bible as well, the blind leading the blind. And because God has taken us to this place, and you can think whatever you want about the world that we live in, okay? I know for a fact that when I pass away from this earth, I want to get to heaven and God says, well done, my good and faithful servant. I don't want to get up there and he says, well, I wanted you to help that one person, and that one person that you would have saved or brought to my kingdom would have saved millions of others, right? Like, we have no idea unless we pursue God. We have no idea unless we look at the habits that we have or the cycles of chaos that we go through, or another word, like I said, demonic patterns that we go through. If we don't self-evaluate, right? If we think we're so holier than thou that we don't have to self-evaluate and actually look at ourselves and see, hey, I'm not perfect in this way. God, I know what I did the other day did not align with your word. We will not be able to truly dare to pursue. We will not be able to truly impact those he's called us to impact. And we will be living in a place, some of us, not all of us, but a lot of us will be living in a place of delusion because we think that we are doing everything right. We're following maybe like a Christian handbook or a Christian rule book. We are operating in a place of delayed obedience or willful disobedience because we haven't sought God, because we haven't pursued him. And so I know that was kind of long, but it's a lengthy process. And God has really taken me on this journey of understanding that there are divine systems of protocol for everything. However, that's why I spelled it out in the book. I thank God, because let me tell you, okay, it needed to be written down. It needed to be spelled out. It was no way possible I could just sit up here and say, hey, I can talk about this from step 1 to step 10 on a regular basis, and I really thank you for bringing up those habits, because those habits are directly connected to cycles of chaos and demonic patterns. And just in case you're not sure, for anybody that's listening, what that is, a great example would just be maybe every year around April, you feel gloomy. You start to feel sad. Maybe you overeat. Maybe you undereat. Maybe you can't get yourself out of the bed. That's just one example of a demonic pattern or a cycle of chaos. Another example would be you can't leave that person alone that you know you're not supposed to be with. You keep going back. Every time you leave, you keep going back. Every time you leave, something makes you go back. A cycle of chaos or a demonic pattern, which is then probably connected to a soul tie. And I could keep going on and on and on about this, but I hope that answered your question, Jason.
Yes, it certainly did. Dare to Pursue. So, Victoria, where can people find the book? I mean, you really break things down in your process. But the very next question, with that vivid response you gave, people want to know, how can they get it?
Absolutely. So it's not out yet, okay? It is in the works to be published, but what you can do is visit daretopursue.org, okay? Get on the email list or the wait list. You can join the free Dare to Pursue Facebook community. I do events all the time. I do lives all the time. We have a weekly prayer call. There's so many things going on. I do MVP days. So you guys heard me mention the real MVP. We do MVP days where I specifically will sit down with you and go through the entire Dare to Pursue process. And you will leave with at least, okay, an understanding and how to take actionable steps, how to actually execute, and then your impact promise as well. Because I don't think I mentioned this before, but all of us are not called to business, but most of, if not all of us, are called to some form of ministry. So once you really get to the point of understanding that and accepting that, and again, your ministry could just be on the job. Your ministry could be in your neighborhood, whatever it is. In this time, in this place, and in this space, our enemy has so many foot soldiers speaking for him. We cannot be afraid to be bold and confident to speak for God, right? And to speak for his kingdom as well. So daretopursue.org. You'll be directly led to the Facebook group, the podcast, all of the things. You can get right on the list so you can stay connected and know when everything is going to be released and when events are going to happen.
Love it. Love it. And folks, we'll have all Victoria's links in the show notes too. So don't you worry. What was that thing Victoria said? We got you. We got you. So Victoria, the book is coming out. Now you see you see that trailer she just dropped? Like, listen, it's not out yet, but here's what you can do. I like that.
Yes.
She gave us a nice movie trailer. So Victoria, you talked about the content of the book, the cycles of chaos, and you mentioned earlier how the book is the center of really how everything goes forward with the business. And you kind of started to get into that, having things like MVP days and the coaching that you do. But you also have your own podcast platform. So tell us about your podcast and the types of conversations that you're currently having on there.
Absolutely. So my podcast is called the Dare to Pursue podcast. It was formerly known as the Successful Servant Leader podcast. And when I first published published my first episode, when I first created it, I just knew God wanted me to speak. I really didn't know what I was going to speak about. I really didn't understand what was going on. But as time went on and as he refined my voice, he refined my voice. He refined the message that he wanted me to deliver to impact the lives of his daughters and some of his sons. I have some male listeners as well. He really helped me to understand that my podcast is a clarion call for servant leaders, modern pioneer women, and real MVPs worldwide. A clarion call to get up, get off your butt, get on your feet, and move. That's why Dare to Pursue, if you look at each and every word, dare is an action word. It is something that you do. He's tired of his sons and daughters being hearers of the word and not doers of the word. He's tired of his sons and daughters not seeking his face to know what they're supposed to do next. And so that is the premise or the foundation of the podcast, that it is a clarion call for basically leaders, okay, worldwide. And we talk about topics from life, faith, business. For me, I'm a mother, so motherhood. We talk about all these topics related to the modern day pioneer woman, the modern day servant leader, and the modern day MVP. And it's a weekly podcast. So that is the main things that we talk about, current topics related to those individuals.
That is powerful, Victoria. Where can people go subscribe to the podcast and make sure that they're listening weekly?
Absolutely. If you go to daretopursue.org, okay, because we are pretty much in a transit. So I have everything in one place real easy, okay, because your girl is getting things together. God is moving. God is changing things up just a bit. But if you just go to daretopursue.org, you will see a link that will take you to the latest podcast episode. It'll take you directly to our Dare to Pursue Facebook community. And you will also be able to get on our email list as well. And you'll be able to see some other links that I have, like some speaking engagements that I've done, some interviews and things like that, and some upcoming trainings that I have as well. But I do a lot of free trainings in our Facebook group. And then some of those trainings, I say, hey, I want to take some time for those who are very serious, specifically about, let's say, healthcare business building. And I take some time with them on Zoom so I can answer specific questions and things like that and help them build those businesses. But if you just go to daretopursue.org, you'll have access to everything. I'm on TikTok, you guys. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. You can find me everywhere.
Folks, she said she was global now. So she is everywhere. I love it. Victoria, as we get ready to wrap our time together, you mentioned the book. You've got some new things God is doing in your business. What are you really excited about for 2023?
Oh, that is a good question, Jason. I'm really excited about God turning Dare to Pursue into something I never even imagined. He's recently given me a vision for a retreat and more in-person events. So I'm very excited to see how that unfolds and how that comes to fruition. I'm very excited. I mean, he's showed me visions and dreams of me laying hands on people. And Jason, I've already had this conversation with you, like, okay, God, I didn't think that's what I would be doing. Okay, but if that's what you want me to do, okay. I give you my yes, because I know that Dare to Pursue would not be here without you. I know that I wouldn't be a licensed practitioner without you. I know that I wouldn't have this business and I wouldn't have the knowledge and be an expert in building healthcare companies, brick and mortar, as well as in-home health agencies without him. Like, I know that I would not be where I am right now without him. So I'm going to give him my yes. And so I'm going to speak that into my atmosphere. I'm excited to see what God says about these retreats and these in-person events.
That sounds good, Victoria. That it sounds like it's going to be powerful. We know the Holy Spirit is behind it. And folks, what you're getting is just a preview. Now, this is her on an interview. Imagine her giving a dynamic keynote or doing a workshop. I'm telling you, I always tell her she's dangerous in the spirit.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much.
I love it. Well, Victoria, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the platform. It was a long time coming. And like I said before, it wasn't a if, it was a when. And I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation tonight.
Absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed it as well. I pray that you guys were able to digest what I was able to deliver on tonight. And thank you so much again, Jason, for having me on.
Absolutely. Make sure, folks, you support Victoria. She's got her own Dare to Pursue podcast. She's got the Dare to Pursue book coming out, daretopursue.org, I believe is what you said, Victoria, where people could go in the meantime until that comes out. Well, folks, that's all we've got time for tonight. Victoria's got to get back to conquering the world. So we're gonna let her go. But Victoria, thank you so much for coming on the podcast this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. Talk to you guys soon, hopefully.
Indeed. Well, folks, that's all we've got time for tonight. But you know how we leave things. Don't compartmentalize your faith in the marketplace. We'll see you next time on the Fortified Life podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Fortified Life podcast. You can catch us live on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and on demand. Check out fortifieddlifepodcast.com for more details. To learn how to live out your faith in the marketplace, grab a copy of Jason Davis's book, Fortified, Being Rooted in God's Plan for Work and Business. Available on Amazon.
You are listening to Jerry Live Worldwide Podcast.
Leftovers or the DMV number 97 or house cleaning or Chumba Casino always brings the fun. Play over 100 different games online for free from anywhere. You could redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. Live the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.